Alright guys, Scrappy here and say, hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. After OpTic's controversial defeat to the Minnesota Rokkr last night, the Vegas Legion boys that beat OpTic in 5 last weekend, they decided to come up with some statements. Johnny was getting involved, Nero was getting involved, and the OpTic boys, maybe understandably, were not so happy with these remarks. Kenny says, look, enjoy your online win, we're going to be ready for the major. Some of these guys in these online cheese victories are the highlight of their career. Lots to talk about today, very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, we've got to talk quickly about the smoke grenades. I think they've changed around a bit, so basically, the smokes in multiplayer are now as big as the ones over in Warzone, although that's not quite true on the CDL build. So they are changing some things around in terms of when they scrim versus the CDL patch, exactly what's going on over there. The big talk, though, yesterday when he was around the new game, Black Ops 6, this omni movement, omnidirectional movement, whatever you want to call it. It's an optional setting. I did discuss this briefly last night, so it may be possible for the pros to effectively gentleman's agreement this one, or for it to just be like officially banned in the CDL rule set. That is possible, although I'm sure that some players will not necessarily want to see that. Obviously, Shotzzy, I can't imagine, is too displeased by seeing the confirmation of this very interesting set of movement mechanics that, well, potentially he's going to be able to use to his advantage. Of course, as Shotzzy says, Black Ops 6 movement looks insane. So he's looking forward to this one, absolutely. I'm sure the game is going to be better than what we've dealt with for the last few years. There's been a feeling in terms of what the game is going to be like, shall we say. Scrappy even said last night on the broadcast in the interview, like he was asked about it, and says, yeah, looks fun, gives me a Cold War vibe, which I think is probably true in the sense that this game was, well, considered to be like Black Ops Gulf War initially was what they were going to call it, something like that. Things have obviously changed over time in the direction they've taken and, well, what they're actually calling the game, but the most recent Trek game was Cold War. Feels a long time ago now, but in the CDL era, still the best game that I think we've played on a competitive level. Played a lot that year, and okay, the game wasn't perfect, it wasn't the best Treyarch game, but it was also very much rushed, that game, we believe, from Treyarch, just because it was meant to be Sledgehammer's year that year, but Sledgehammer messed it up or whatever with Vanguard, so Treyarch had to come in a year early. This time they've had an extra year to develop Black Ops 6, so, you know, we should be expecting a pretty good title. We shall see what happens. But of course, the big drama yesterday was, yeah, tough day for Dallas, and I thought this is pretty damn good. But of course, OpTic also lost to the Minnesota Rokkr yesterday as well. It was definitely a surprise, right? And we talked about some of the different storylines on this yesterday. The fact that these teams that are fighting for the World Championship, they are going super hard. You know, they're going to do whatever it takes. Sound EQ on, you know, whatever is required to get these guys over the line. Of course, they're going to try and use. But at the same time, OpTic did not play their best stuff, right? They probably should have won the control easier than 5. Going down as they did in the map 2, Search and Destroy wasn't great. Choking the lead they had, map 5 wasn't great. The map 4 Vista, they got pretty much crushed by the Minnesota Rokkr, a team that is not good as far as I'm concerned, and I think we've seen that over the last couple of weeks. So this is the way that things look right now. FaZe have started off 3-0, Surge are 3-1, Ultra 2-1, but as it stands, OpTic are starting in the losers bracket. Now, they've only played 3 games, and they play Ravens. I mean, it's tough for Ravens, isn't it, right? Because Ravens are probably going to feel the wrath of OpTic next weekend. You would imagine that OpTic are like, okay, you know, big wake-up call here for us, losing to Legion, losing to Rokkr, need to lock back in again. And obviously after giving those victories to Vegas and Rokkr and giving them a fair few points on the stage, then they play Ravens, who desperately need the points and may be deprived of them. We shall see, of course, what happens, but yeah, OpTic currently 1-2, still 7-6 map count, and they should be fine for the winners bracket, but I will say for OpTic, their schedule from now to the end of the stage is not exactly easy, so they will need a couple of big victories in the next couple of series that they go on to play. Obviously, Pred say, look, we super trolled that series. Fair play to aBeZy. He's done it again somehow against OpTic, and as he says, the master aBeZy, because he teamed with accuracy for quite some time on the Seattle Surge. Kenny wasn't happy about it either. We saw these tweets last night. Actually, a joke of a performance. But the big question was some of the reaction going around, because Dashy had been quite clear after the Vegas series that he felt like, you know, there was some cheese afoot, right? There was something going on. There was online cheese, there was server cheese, Virginia-related stuff. We actually saw this tweet, of course, when Sib also lost with the Subliners to Vegas, saying, you know, basically Virginia server was not playing to the advantage of the Texas teams. Now, Minnesota Rokkr, are they not based out of Dallas? I think pretty sure they are anyway. And if they're not, they're all based in the same location and there isn't any server advantage to be spoken about. So this is when the Vegas Legion guys decided to jump on the bandwagon and make their thoughts known. So Johnny, I think he deleted this, but he decided to tweet this here to Staddy, and I think this is, I wouldn't say it's tempting fate precisely, but I think it's very interesting that Johnny and the Vegas boys are opting to go down this route, because they're taking the opportunity presented by OpTic, and of course Pred made it quite clear after they lost to Johnny, and Johnny did the L emote, right, the Fortnite stuff, that it was like, okay, this guy is not getting away with this for too much longer. But Vegas are continuing to try and twist the knife here, as it were, right? They're taking their victory, they're taking their little leg up they got on OpTic last weekend, and now they're running with it to such an extent that, you know, this has got to be pissing the OpTic guys off, and maybe that's going to work out well for OpTic in the sense that when they play Vegas, they're going to absolutely demolish them, assuming they do from now to the end of the season, which is possible at Major 4 or the World Championship. Vegas, of course, looking good for the winners brackets. OpTic will probably still make the winners brackets, so who knows what could be possible there. And then also for the World Championship, it's not out of the realms of possibility. That is one option. Or the other option is that Vegas, you know, get in OpTic's head somehow, and they actually gain some advantage from this themselves. But Johnny says to Standy, of course beating OpTic, you must have been listening to this heat before the match, because basically what he's saying is, oh, you guys were on that Virginia server as well, mightn't you? Because that's obviously only the reason why we won, because that's why OpTic were talking all this trash, that we only won because we had the Virginia server. And to be fair, OpTic didn't even say that initially. Ghosty said it. But of course we saw that tweet from Dashy, right? So it then continues. Obviously this was the other one that happened at the time when they beat, when Vegas beat OpTic, and Dashy was like, they win on one online match and don't know how to act. Now this is the continued storyline we're going to discuss here in a second. So Nero also weighed into the discussion, right? He's opening the can of worms here, Nero. Like, he's asking the OpTic fans and his replies to absolutely torch him, but, you know, Vegas are willing to do so because they've got the confidence now, Vegas. Whether they should or not, that's a debate, but they clearly have the confidence, Vegas, that they're actually a good team. They can compete with these top dogs right now and take it to them at the LAN events. Clearly, the top teams don't believe there's any chance that Vegas are going to turn up to LAN and be any sort of a threat. Vegas do, and therefore they're willing to talk some trash because they believe they can back it up. So, and to be fair, in some sense, OpTic started it because obviously Vegas beat them, and then OpTic came out saying, oh, GG's guys, those guys are beasts and all this. And then Nero saying, hey, look, it wasn't just us getting all this server advantage, you guys just ain't very good, you just lost to Minnesota Rokkr. That is, of course, the implication. And then Nero's like, look, here they come, boys, pray for me, because, of course, in the replies, there were people absolutely cooking him. So then, after the Vegas guys said their piece, we then got the discussion from Kenny. Kenny decides to wade in and give his perspective. Online stuff got people with an average placing of last, acting funny, he says. So this is kind of going along the same narrative that we saw from Dashy the other day, when it was like, yeah, these guys, they get one online winner, they're talking crazy, what's going on here? And Kenny says the same thing, following up with this, and obviously this guy in the reply says, shoot straight and win matches then. You know, Ken, there's no excuses for losing to either of these teams. I know we're playing bad, so he does admit that obviously they've not played the best COD. Like, it's not like it's just server stuff or whatever. They've not played their best stuff. It's in some sense maybe understandable, but I'm sure that many OpTic fans right now, well, I've actually seen many OpTic fans are thinking, hang on a second, the Vegas loss was, if there is server stuff, and even Karma, the coach, said that was BS. I'd be intrigued to hear their thoughts on this one after this, but there was a thought, okay, whatever, that's one series, but losing to Vegas and Rokkr back-to-back is all of a sudden, like, that's a bit of a concern, right? Especially because it's not like FaZe is slowing down, they lost the most recent major, they're probably going harder than ever. It's understandable that, you know, you take your foot off the gas a little bit after a victory, and maybe this is the perfect opportunity for OpTic to realise they've got to step back on the gas, as it were. But Kenny says, like, it's going to be fine come the major. We're going to be ready come the tournament. These matches are the highlights of some careers, it seems. Pretty funny, right? To say, oh, this Nero guy, this Johnny guy, they're talking all this trash because, oh, well done, you beat us online. But who really cares? We're going to beat you on LAN again, or we're going to outplace you on LAN. And more than likely that will be true. But still, Kenny's not putting the pressure on precisely, but Kenny's making it very clear that he expects them to deliver the goods when they get to the LAN environment, and he doesn't expect Vegas to. Whereas online, it's obviously a different story. So what is going to come true here? Because I think that this should piss OpTic off a little bit. The response from the Vegas guys and the way everything has been handled, a lot of the reaction as well from the fans to, oh, was OpTic fallen off? You know, they won event wonders and all this. I don't think that's going to be true. But, you know, this is historically something that can happen with OpTic. They get a victory and all of a sudden it's, you know, they don't go as hard as they should. Crim6, actually, there's a podcast coming out very shortly with Crim6 and ReeaL, and it's going to be on the Breaking Point channel. I listened to the whole thing, a brilliant episode, and Crim was saying that, look, once you win an event, you don't go as hard as you were before, you have to go twice as hard. Because if you don't go twice as hard in your practice and your grind after you win, you ain't going to stay ahead. And historically, even, you know, I remember Cold War, when, yes, it was online qualifiers, but you guys, if you remember that season, FaZe were dominating. FaZe beat OpTic every time they played that year, but at the Stage 5 qualifiers, OpTic beat FaZe. And they were like, oh, you know, we've done it, right? But they went to the Major and they lost, and then they went to the World Championship and they lost. And in hindsight, what they said was after they beat FaZe in the online series, they thought, oh, you know, we've done it, we've accomplished it, like, we're as good as FaZe, we're potentially better than FaZe, and that's going to be fine for us. But obviously, that was not the reality, and they needed to keep going harder at that point. These are the way the standings currently line up. So FaZe are looking very comfortable for that #1 seed again this season, which, as I said yesterday, is going to be pretty important come the World Championship, because I think you probably do want to play the 8th seed rather than the 7th or the 6th, potentially, but maybe it doesn't really matter this year compared to other years. Subliners, of course, are still 4th, but this is now how things look. So Boston are chalked, obviously we know that. Gorillas at 120, Ravens at 130, but Rokkr with the win yesterday, they get to 140. That's a big deal, because it now puts Thieves under more pressure as well. Thieves' run from now to the end of the stage is tough. They play like 3 of the top 4 teams and Vegas, so they could be stuck very similar to this number. Ravens are at 130, tied with Legion, but Legion are on the uptick. Ravens have played 4 Game 5 so far. They've won 1 of them. It's not exactly ideal. Surge are looking very pretty, and, you know, OpTic played 4 more games, because OpTic are 1 and 2, so all of a sudden OpTic have to think, alright, their map count is fine. They should make winners. But let's say OpTic were to, you know, get a couple of losses, couple of wins from now to the end of the stage, they were to, let's say, go 3 and 4, they might have a pretty difficult first round game. I think for the last couple of events, our first round matches have been #1 team versus basically top 4 team versus non-top 4 team. There's been no top 4 battles round 1, because that's the way, you know, basically the matches typically have gone as expected so far this season. But now at Major 4, it's a bit of a different story. And these are OpTic's games. They play Ravens, which is not going to be easy. I mean, if they play anywhere like they have done against Vegas and Rokkr over the last couple of weekends, Ravens could put up a fight. I mean, they went Game 5 with FaZe. They went up 2-0 on FaZe. Subliners and Toronto are in here as well, 2 top 4 teams. So those are not guaranteed wins. Boston, okay, I mean, we've got one on the board, but apart from that, who knows? So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Color, brother. I'm about to just take this, oh my. How far is it going back, bro? What is this? Hold up. Nah. Jesus Christ, dude. I didn't think it was going that far back. Golly, brother.